I raised an issue with our council yesterday because of a phone call that I engaged in with Mr. Bob Hewson from Colorado Youth Outdoors. You guys have heard me talk about the good work that CYO does, and I think it may not be apparent to everybody how local his organization really is in its inception, but how broad their reach is in its operation. You know, this is a homegrown charitable business in our town, and one of the concerns that Bob raised with me was the effect some of the legislation signed recently by the governor was going to have on their ability to perform to their business model that they currently have. In my life and in many things that I do, I'm a firearms instructor for the NRA. I deal with firearms and their safety all the time. One of the things that Bob shared with me was that they were concerned that the actual implementation of these bills was going to keep him from being able to succeed in sort of the second mission. They can train people at their facility, but when they send kids and their parents out to actually do the thing they've been practicing, they may come under a tremendous amount, not just of liability financially, but criminal liability from some of these bills and some of the unforeseen consequences of them. Talked to Bob yesterday, thought about it a lot, and drafted a letter that I sent to all of you that I would like this council as a group to send to the governor. I think it would be a tremendous amount of strength in expressing that unanimous support to the governor for one of our local businesses. Bob, if I could get you to come up and talk. I know there are a couple people who'd like to talk to this. Cecil, you were concerned that we just have sort of one version of what we hear. I'd like to hear from our business owner. There are two people here tonight who deal with youth training, youth shooting sports. One is Bob Hewson from Colorado Youth Outdoors. The other is Stan Bartholomew from, well, I was going to say Stan's Auto, but that's not fair. Stan is the youth education coordinator for all of Colorado for Pheasants Forever. Stan works with over 1,000 kids every year, and both of them have potential large impacts from this. So I would ask that we hear from them, and I'd really also like to hear from Sheriff Smith just about some of how law enforcement is going to deal with some of these issues. Could I have the consent of council to do that?
Okay, well, let me tell you, because we didn't have a chance to talk, and the email that I didn't see the email until this morning, and then I had a meeting in Denver that I had to get to, so I didn't really get a chance to communicate. And the problem I'm going to express here is that this came very late, and I'm not sure what time you sent that email yesterday, but I didn't see it yesterday. And I don't know how many other counselors saw it yesterday or today. The problem I've got is that you know, I'm willing to discuss it up here, and I'm willing to hear from the two business owners personally to hear how we can help them. I think the other issue is a different issue altogether, and it's so. I don't want to open it up for wide open discussion because we did not have this publicized enough as a meeting for this to be a total discussion. So that's the concern I have.
And this is probably a discussion we need to have very quickly, but
yeah.
You may have read the last line of my email, which is due to the pedantic nature of our process. And the problem is that if I were a citizen, if I got out of this chair and I walked up to the podium and I said, I want to raise this issue and I want to have council support my business, I could do that as a counselor, and I could do it in the moment. I could distribute it to council. I could expect that you discuss it and make a decision on it.
We could make it.
Absolutely, you could.
Absolutely. And Mr. Mayor,
Absolutely.
I especially agree with listening to Sheriff Smith and his views on this.
But I'll tell you, you know, my concern is that there's a very timely nature to this, and that is these regulations signed into law. Took some time for people to go through them. They went into effect yesterday. And this is, I think, a very, I was about to use the word precocious period of time where we have the ability to say, Governor, this just started and we already are seeing problems with it. And it's going to affect businesses, charitable organizations in our community. And that's what has me very concerned about it. I would be interested to hear you know, both their testimony, Sheriff Smith's testimony. We have other business owners here in town who are going to be impacted by this as well.
Well, again, I don't think we gave the public enough notice that this was going to be discussed. Now, I'm not going to, I'm not going to rule from the chair. I've already said I'd be willing to hear from the two business owners because I think that's important that we hear, because that was my concern. I saw the letter, and I've got some questions of those business owners that I'd like to hear from those two, from CYO and Pheasants Forever. Now, hey,
Let's see how that goes, and we'll see who else we might want to talk to.
That the issues are before us. Certainly, the principals that are involved in this, we could hear from them tonight within the constraints and the designs of the existing procedures and policies. But I'm uncomfortable with trying to launch a full-scale public hearing on either the concerns of Colorado Youth Outdoors, of the parallel and connected issues that probably the Pheasant organization has raised. But there's much more to it than that. I start picking this apart, looking at state statutes and the state constitution, and I'm not clear on at least a half dozen points. So
And appreciate that.
We should proceed with caution.
However, these are our rules and procedures, and pedantic as they are, that was the nature of my call to the city clerk's office to make sure that they were notified. And the choice was to go ahead and leave it under council, business from council, which is, let's remember, new business. And new business can be considered, can be decided upon, can be considered by this body. So therefore, when you talk about it that way, if it's more time that we need, then our own rules and procedures are faulty, and I'm not needing to discuss that tonight. But it depends on, the only place we have to post anything is that bulletin board outside, and that's the problem I have, is how can we react quickly to citizens' complaints and concerns if we can't take something up with the 24-hour notice that we have as part of our policy?
Well, I have no argument that we're going to take up the issue. I am just not certain that with full notification to the entire Loveland community.
But what does that mean, Ralph?
It means more than 12 hours
And
by
you
email.
need to change your policy. You need to change your policy. The only place we have is a bulletin board outside that we have to post 24 hours in advance.
Would be, and I'm certainly willing to discuss that this evening. I'm certainly willing to hear from the two business owners. I do have questions, and I'd be more than willing to have a discussion in the community with that, on that topic, and would love to have the sheriff have an opportunity to speak, as well as others to have an opportunity to speak. And I'm not really interested in supporting having that discussion in a bubble tonight.
Now I really don't have enough information to in my opinion, because I've not read either one of those bills. And I haven't heard from our legal counsel. I haven't heard from our police chief. This wasn't brought to our attention. CML, they were neutral on these bills. So anyway, let's start with the two business. I'm willing to go forward with the two business people right now.
And the sheriff.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with you. I think our focus ought to be in dealing with the businesses that are impacted by these laws. And that's as far as we ought to go tonight. In the future, we could have a meeting. We have 4 counselors who would like to have that meeting. We could hold that meeting in the future, and it could be a true public hearing. But we would have the opportunity for all points of view at that time. So I really recommend that we go with only the hearing from the businesses.
I mean, we can do this by a show of hands, but I'm here to tell you, the businesses are a big part of that brought this to light. But what we're talking about, and I'm trying to figure my way out through this because this is not something we do all the time. But what we're asking for is testimony from people to give us information. And the way that I couched this was in order so that we can discuss my draft of this letter. Now, that's my draft. Of course, it can be changed by this council, but I need to hear from the sheriff to understand if this draft needs to be changed. Because, Phil, that's what we're talking about, is not just the business owners. We're talking about the elements of these bills that have an undue effect, a detrimental effect to not only businesses in our town, but our citizens. And so I cannot just put this parentheses around the charitable organizations that we need to hear from because we believe so much in what they do. I need to hear from our sheriff so that I have some understanding of what that overarching impact might be.
This strikes me to be very similar to the oil and gas discussion. And we spent a lot of time making sure that we had every conceivable side of the oil and gas discussion presented. And I think we need to give people adequate lead time so that all sides can be presented. We want to be fair, we want to be complete, but we want to make sure that we get a total picture.
And here's...
Don't disagree with that at all, Phil. The problem is that we have people here tonight who can testify. It does not mean that you have to agree with any decision or any action that we take. It means that we have them available to us tonight so we can hear them. There can always be other opportunities for more people to come in. Doesn't mean that everybody has to get the wedding invitation on the same day. It just means that we all need to hear what part they bring to us, and I need to hear that tonight.
And here's the problem I've got, is that these are state laws that were signed into law, passed by the state legislature, one of them sitting here, who probably voted against it.
Imagine that.
That have been signed into law, and now what this is really starting to sound like, okay, to me is that we need that tonight. What we've got here is a discussion on a whole discussion again that the state legislature had for how many months? 3, 4 months, 5 months, and rehashing that. For me, I don't have haven't had the time to review these laws to have that kind of a discussion tonight, personally. Now, when I came to tonight's meeting, I heartily support what CYO does. I don't know the other organization, sorry, but I do know the good work that CYO does. And when I saw that was a problem for them, my goal tonight is to try to figure out here how we can try to work with CYO and the other organization to try to see if we can't help them out. And if we can do that, then the other discussion, if we want to schedule another meeting when it's free-roaming discussion about gun control, then we can do that.
Just remember, this is not a free-roaming discussion about gun control. This is a discussion about provisions in 2 bills that were raised to us. We have a sheriff in the audience who can answer some of the details of that, because I will bet your bottom that he has read those bills very carefully and understands what the challenges are in enforcing those. Here's one of our local law enforcement officials who would actually be the enforcement agency that would have to take action against 2 of these charitable organizations if they were to run afoul. So I don't, you keep trying to couch this in, we just need to hear from our businesses. This is the issue they are discussing, is what is their liability under the law. The gentleman who would impose those restrictions on them is sitting behind them, about 4 or 5 feet behind them.
Is, Bill, I don't think our police chief is here tonight, is he?
No, tonight we have Captain Ray Miller from the department here present. But Chief Hecker is not here.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I don't want to ever get involved in sitting at this dais and telling our citizens that have taken their time, their energy, and having to listen to our diatribe for the hours that is necessary to actually get through a city council meeting of any flavor, whether they be a citizen, a business owner, or our sheriff at large, that they can't speak to this council. I don't ever want to get involved in that. That's what we're here for. That's what we're paid for. And I'd say that anybody that has something to say tonight should get to say it.
Okay. But I will also then, if that's the road we go down tonight, John, then I will also ask that we schedule another meeting and where other folks have the opportunity as well, where it is well publicized.
My only comment is we could have been halfway through the hearing by now.
We probably could have, Daryl, but
Why don't we
let's-
get with it?
Then I'm going to start with this. I'm going to ask our two business owners, and I'm going to start with Bob, if you don't mind. Come on up, and I need some specifics, you know. And again, you know, I'm going to remind you, I don't know the law, so.
Bob